Now, all Cardinals expected to take part in the secret conclave to elect a new pope have now arrived. They held their 10th congregation last night in preparation for the upcoming conclave. Let's take you live now to the Vatican City, where we find our reporter Linda Mnisi. We're edging closer and closer, Linda, to the main issue, the election of a new pope, which is what the world over is monitoring very closely, some, of course, with a great deal of anticipation and others with a great deal of excitement.
Absolutely, Bravi, and you almost see the shift in movement here at the St. Peter's Square. If you compare it, for example, to a couple of days ago, you would see where I'm standing, which is basically the designated media area. It was quite empty with only just a few media houses. But you look around now, you see, members of the media coming into this space to try and, of course, set up their own things. We've set up our own space over here, which, of course, will be where we'll be coming to you live from. But the various media houses that are moving in, my colleague Maxilotolo will just show you the level of preparation that's going into, the broadcast of the conclave, because, of course, it has grabbed the world's attention. It's one of those historic events that many people from across the world want to witness. So all these broadcasters that you see here have gathered to start their preparations really for that moment where we see what decision the Cardinals will come to in terms of deciding on who becomes the next Pope. This is the 267th Pope that the College of Cardinals will be electing from the Sistine Chapel. And it's been interesting really hearing the views of the Cardinals earlier today, who were moving from a meeting that was held this morning and, of course, enjoying lunch. But this is an important time, Bravi. When you see them around here, it's an important time to engage each other outside of formal settings, because obviously there is that important process of really them trying to get to know each other and understand really the different kinds of cardinals there are. Interesting that some cardinals, in fact, say the discussions that are held in these congregations, these are pre-conclave meetings. The discussions that are held in those meetings are discussions that they're hoping that the incoming Pope will hear. He says, in fact, we hope that he's hearing what we're saying in terms of where we want the church to go. So these discussions are being held, in the midst of what will be Pope Francis's successor. He may not know it yet, but of course, one of the successor will definitely come from amongst the cardinals themselves, because they're eligible to vote, but they're also in the running to becoming the next Pope. So these are interesting but important discussions that are being held by the cardinals, such as the quality of the next Pope, but also the financial status of the church. They held a meeting this morning, and some of the things that was discussed is really the issue around where the church stands in terms of the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. And this is something that is important, because if you think back to not so long ago, about a couple of weeks ago, Pope Francis, standing at the balcony that is now being prepared for his successor, talking about, war-stricken countries, talking about Palestine and the peace in Palestine. And now the church is reflecting on its position on war-stricken countries. But these are not the only war-stricken countries that the upcoming Pope or the upcoming pontiff will have to deal with. You'd recall Pope Francis back in 2015 going to war-stricken African countries, going also to the DRC in 2023, and many other parts of the world really that are troubled. And the church's position, particularly when it comes to the Ukraine and Russia war, is that they're really not satisfied with the position the church has taken. So it is a time of reflection really for the church in terms of where they put themselves and how they're going to position themselves and respond to the challenges of the world. So all of these discussions are discussions that they're hoping that the successor of Pope Francis will hear and possibly take forward. So obviously, because of the role that the Pope plays, it's important that he's able to respond to the challenges that face the world today. So all of these discussions are very, very key and very important, really, in driving the church forward. Currently, the Cardinals are, the most important, really, people in the decision-making hierarchy of the church, because the executive power, the Pope, has passed away and the seat of St. Peter is vacant. So between the passing of Pope Francis and the next Pope that will be elected in a couple of days, these decisions are, the small decisions are being made, but these cardinals have the duty to take the church forward and steer it to the right direction in line with the church's constitution. You see it in the manner that they dress, you see it in the manner in which things are done from the passing of the Pope, the days of mourning, and when exactly a Pope is supposed to be buried. Those are things that are in line with, of course, the rules of the church until the next pontiff is elected. That person will then have the freedom to make amendments here and there in terms of what, will characterize or become his papacy going forward. But at the moment, the decisions that were taken by Pope Francis about the church and the direction of the church still stand. So a lot of reflection is being done and a lot of talks amongst cardinals is happening. This in between while they're trying to get to know each other in order for them, of course, to make the process easier when they go into the Sistine Chapel and they make that important decision about who the next Pope will be. So it's going to be quite interesting because, again, like I said earlier on, there's this famous quote that whoever walks into the Sistine Chapel a Pope walks out a cardinal. So while there's a number of names being, tossed around, it's usually those who are not really at the forefront who emerge Pope. So over the next couple of days, then we'll get to see what the cardinals have decided. Pravi?
Linda Mnisi, live from the Vatican, keeping an eye on that papal conclave where cardinals have convened to elect the Bishop of Rome, otherwise known as the Pope.